Welcome to Crossroads, the Intersections of Blackness. My name is Ikera Davis, and I'll be your host. I am a member of Kingmakers of Oakland's National Street Team. We host events, build community, and provide spaces for our people to talk about some of the great work that they're doing. Here on Crossroads, we tap in with Black folks in all their different identities. We aim to highlight individuals who are often overlooked and or ignored, who do positive work in our communities for our communities. We are crossing the roads of age, sexuality, gender, location, mental health, etc., in hopes of engaging conversations and learning new lessons. Our focus is intersectionality and how all of our identities play into our ever-present Blackness. So today, I'd like to uplift the voice of Deveaux, one of the co-founders of Crossroads. Deveaux is a singer-songwriter and musician who, throughout their training at Oakland School for the Arts, has performed with the likes of Daveed Diggs, Patrice Rushen, Kehlani, and many more. They use their music to voice the issues that the Black community faces and to portray their experience in the world. As a youth ambassador of the KU National Street Team, B has been able to uplift not only the youth that KU works with, but also their co-workers in their community. They've been featured on the Kingmakers of Oakland Kings in the Making album, as well as in the Revolution Remix, which are all online and streamable. B is an educator, an artist, a musician, and an all-around dynamic individual. And I would like to introduce B Deveaux.
Hello.
Welcome. welcome.
That was a Will and Jada moment.
You know, right? Exactly. Has to be done. Sometimes you just gotta shine the light on the star. Okay, period. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Is there anything you want to say that I have not already said, Shal?
No, that was beautiful. Thank you.
We love a bio. Period. Succinct. But thank you. I'm happy that you're here, and I'm happy that we get to have this conversation. So the first question I would love to ask you, just to kick us off, is what does intersectionality mean to you?
I knew you were going to ask me this question.
Oh my God, I wonder why.
We actually came up with these questions
We are
together.
like, come on, co-founders. That's what we do.
But, I mean, that's an interesting question. When I first learned about intersectionality, like as a concept,
Right.
I was in high school in my junior year ethnic studies class. And that whole year, I mean, we learned about everything from Black folks to Cambodian folks to different refugees from all around history. I mean, it was just ethnic studies.
Yeah.
And intersectionality was a term that we learned about in our vocab, like at the beginning of the class, but I didn't really understand what that meant.
Right.
And it was like through learning all of the different things and kind of finding out where I stood on certain issues when it comes to race and, you know, colorism and microaggressions and all those other things that come with racism.
Right.
It wasn't until then that I really realized, like, okay, like, no, I'm not just, you know, at the time I was identifying as a Black woman. So I was not just a Black woman, but I was a gay Black woman.
Right.
And not just a gay Black woman, but a young gay Black woman. You know, and all of these things come with their own biases and stereotypes and notions. And like growing up in Oakland and growing up in, you know, very much so affirmed in my Blackness and affirmed in who I am. It was never like a question of like, you know, am I Black or how Black am I? That was never a question. But it wasn't until when I found out that I was queer as well that it started to kind of, you know, become this multifaceted thing. And it kind of was like the beginning of me finding out really where my identity was and who I was a little bit. Also, this is around the time of me being like 17. So who wasn't going through
Always
that?
changes.
But to me, I would just say intersectionality is or are the layers, you know, of somebody. I feel like Shrek said, you know, onions have layers, humans have layers. And I feel like...
Yes, the Shrek quote.
It's a very simple way of putting it, but like it makes sense.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
And I feel like depending on someone's level of vulnerability in that moment and level of comfortability, you know, with themselves and also with sharing whatever information that may be, you'll be able to see all those layers or not. And I would say that's what it means to me.
Period. So how do you identify now?
So now I identify as a young Black individual, young Black queer individual. non-binary individual. What other labels do I have? Let me think. You could also put me under the trans umbrella.
Nice.
I mean, there's a lot of hats to it.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, I was a young person still. I'm only 21. You know, I'm growing and learning about myself. And I feel like, I don't know, what I've learned is that not everybody's going to accept all of the aspects of your intersectionality.
Right.
But it's up to you, you know, A, to share it with them, and B, just to stand in who you are, whether they know it or not.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, whether or not you knew I was non-binary, I'm still going to be able to represent myself, represent my, you know, organization that I'm working with. Not organization. Wait, no, organization.
Yeah, you're right. You got it.
Why did I think I said organized?
No, you got it. So how does your identity inform how you move and navigate through the world? And, like, has that changed since you were younger?
Yeah, definitely. I came out at 14 as a
Wow.
bisexual kid. And my dad, sorry, Dad, if you're watching this, he said, well, it all arose from me playing Joanne in Rent. And if anybody knows Joanne is a lesbian, a very powerful Black, you know, I don't give a what anybody says about me kind of person. And it was one of those things where the teacher sent home a thing like, we're going to be dealing with some serious topics. We want to make sure you're aware of this. Please sign it. Gave it to my dad. He signed it. Week later, he's like, why didn't you tell me you were playing a faggot in the play? Excuse my language.
But that was,
But those were the words that he said to me. And as a 14-year-old, it was like, oh my God, like, what?
Yeah.
So I decided to say, me being the strong, prideful person I was like, well, I'm bisexual, so it shouldn't matter. And then he was like, you're what? And it was just this screaming match. And honestly, after that experience, I was just like, we're just not going to worry about sexuality. We're not going to worry about, you know, whatever that is. We're just going to stuff it down because that's the best way to handle it. You know, that's like our defense mechanism. But then 2020 happened, and it was like, you have to accept yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you can't hide yourself because other people maybe don't accept you.
Yeah.
You can't, you know, try to push down pieces of who you are. At the end of the day, you are who you are. And at the end of the day, I believe in God. God made me perfectly. So he doesn't make mistakes. There's no way that he could have, you know, made a mistake with me. And my father's also a man of God. So it's like, you know, I know that there's some way, somehow, that hopefully one day he'll accept me. And honestly, I mean, if you're watching this, Dad, hopefully you do by the end of this. But, you know, it was just a decision in 2020 that I've kind of kept going. That it was just like, I'm going to choose me at the end of the day. And family is a huge, like, anchor for me, just in this lifetime, in this journey. But what I've learned, especially with my dad, is that family will stick by you at the end of the day. The true ones are going to be there. And when it came down to it, push and shove, when I need my dad is there.
That's beautiful.
A year later, in my senior year, he did apologize. It was a whole crying fest.
Love that. Sometimes
and honestly,
cry.
and honestly, you know, he's stepped up as a person, as a human being, just because I feel like, and maybe he won't admit it, but for me, I feel like he's seen me stepping into me, regardless of what his opinion is.
Right.
And so he realized, you know, I'm going to have to get on this wagon or I'm going to miss it.
Right.
And I was going to teach him how to treat me, how to love me properly, you know, regardless of what may have been said. But, you know, it was like, I'm grown.
Yeah. No,
I've got to do what
real.
I've got to do. And if you're not going to support me at the end of the day, then, you know, that sucks. And I'm going to have to love you from afar. But, I think that figuring out my identity was really kind of like a pinnacle point for me in terms of just deciding who I am. I feel like these past 2 years, or these past 4, I mean, just entire high school experience, is definitely going to be one that like sticks with me. All of these experiences, finding myself really. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, that definitely does. And I want to touch on, like, because you're an artist. So it's like I know artists We are just very like introspective, you know what I mean? And like even if our art isn't an exact reflection of what we're going through, it still is, you know what I mean? That's like a coping mechanism. It's a way that we like unleash it and get it off. So like how does that kind of play into you? Like how does your art, your different forms, like how does that help you heal or like navigate through all of what you know what I mean? All of what you go through, like your identity.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I write a lot of songs. I've been writing music since I was the first song that I remember writing was 6 years old and sitting in my mom's backseat, and I was on like a Virgin mobile phone with like 12 buttons on it, and it had like the little voice recording memo, and I like pressed record, and I was just sitting there making up a song. And I remember I had that for like 5 years later, found it, and I was like, oh my gosh, listen to this tiny me.
Right.
And I might have been maybe 8. I don't know. Maybe you're not. Oh, I'm too old to remember 6-year-old memory. But, you know, that was one of my first memories of like wanting to come up with songs. But I feel like throughout my whole life, you know, anytime I'm feeling sad, happy, whatever, I'm gonna sing. You know, unless I'm doing something professional, like right now, I'm not gonna break out into song. But you know,
hit them with it.
But you know, if I'm minding my business or you know, focus on something, I'll be humming, I'll be singing. And my dad, he gave me my first guitar.
Oh, beautiful.
So, what was that thing? It was an Ibanez, all black. It had like a blue fur case. Nice. I was 11 years old. He had it behind the couch so I couldn't see it. And then he pulled it out and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? It was my first instrument. And it only had 5 strings. So what I did was I ended up breaking off the 5th. And then I had 4. I tuned it to a ukulele and I started writing songs. And it was basically like a tenor ukulele. If you've ever, it's like a bigger version. Yeah. And I started writing songs. Obviously the ukulele chords are a lot easier. So it was super easy. And I remember when I was about 15, maybe 14, I wrote a song called Give Me a Reason, which is around the time that all of this was happening in terms of like me finding out that I was queer at all. And so I wrote this song. It's actually on Spotify under a group called Vocal Rush, which was or is Oakland School for the Arts top a cappella ensemble. And I joined there as a 9th grader, and we actually did like a first originals album where pretty much everyone in the group wrote a song for the album, and we like arranged them together. And a few were arranged by my teacher. That one was arranged by my teacher. So if you listen to it now, it talks about basically feeling at a loss, feeling alone, feeling isolated, feeling like there's no way to make it through the day, let alone the end of the year. And I'm also someone who experiences anxiety, depression. So those are all real things for me. And it was honestly, if I'm being completely real, trigger warning, it was like a suicidal song. For me, it was a song where I felt like I had lost someone, because I'm a daddy's girl, and I felt like I had lost someone who was like a pillar to me. And this song was really the way that I healed over all of it.
I love that.
Obviously, the conversation with my dad helped, but music has always been my therapy. And I know that's a cliche.
But it's real.
It's real, exactly. Sitting down with your guitar and being able to weave together words just from feeling vibrations on a string is incredible to me. For me, it's also very spiritual. It's where I feel the closest to God, or at least the closest to myself, which is also God.
Yeah, say that.
So, I don't know. It's just anytime that anything has happened in my life, the first place that I go to is the instrument. And, you know, guitar is obviously my first love. The piano, sometimes it's the drums, sometimes it's just a cappella, sometimes I'm just sitting there with my phone. But either way, anytime I'm able to lift my voice, it brings healing and it brings joy and it brings comfort. And it's honestly, you know, one of the few constants in my life that I feel like has stuck with me. You know, music is one of those things that keeps me going as much as people do and support and all the material things. Just being able to open my mouth and sing and be able to, you know, iterate the emotions that I'm feeling through song, through music. It's truly one of the greatest gifts that I've been given. So, I mean, to talk about how music has influenced my life is like, I mean, how hasn't it is probably a better question.
Right.
Actually, I just want to share this. When I was 2, which is probably when my dad started at Roots of Unique Awareness in West Oakland, my oldest sister joined their school choir. And Ajali, that's her name, Ajali Deveaux Griffith. She was with us at the last lab, if you were there. She was in the choir. If it was not for her singing in the choir, raising her voice and doing her thing, and me being her younger sister and just wanting to be like her, I don't think that I ever would have sang.
Wow.
Because if it wasn't for that choir, my parents, I don't think would have known, like, oh, she has a talent, or, oh, we should, try to grow this into something. But yeah, it was all, it's all because of my sister.
I love that. And I really know how it feels to be the younger sibling, too. I was the younger sibling for 13 years before I got my 3 younger, and I got 3 younger than me, but it's like my oldest sister, she was like, I'd just be like watching her, you know what I mean? As a kid, just like, I want those pants when she's done with them. I want that shirt when she's done with them. Like,
oh my gosh, the amount of times my sister
closet.
got mad at me for being in the closet.
I'm still in my sister's closet. That's my first boutique, okay? I literally goes down the hall. Okay, what's she got in here? Like, this is cute. I haven't seen this before. Yeah, put it back. So no, I can relate to that. I wanted to ask you, and this is like kind of off script, but since we're having this conversation, I wanted to ask you why, because we did this. Like, people don't know, we created this show. We were the only 2 femme presenting people on our street team, and we were like, how do we get a show that aligns with kind of our beliefs and kind of where we get to see ourselves? And so I kind of want to ask you about that. Like, what kind of was your thought process when we were kind of having these conversations to do Crossroads specifically? Like, what was the need, you know?
I'm trying to think back to, like, what was happening during that time. Because I remember when
it was kind of upset the setup too.
Yeah, we were still in quarantine as well. So it was also just like Breaking Bread had come out.
They were already doing it.
Right, they were already doing it. And I think I had maybe done one of the interviews. And I don't even know if it was like I came up with the idea or you came up with the idea.
Yeah, we just kind of figured it out.
I just feel like we came together as a team. That's kind of how everything happens. But I mean, for me, it's always important to shed light on voices that aren't heard. You know what I mean? And I feel like on the street team, especially it's Kingmakers. Yeah. It's a male-dominated space. And in male-dominated spaces, I feel like it's imperative that we step up, you know, as young people, period, whether we're female, whatever, non-binary, but just to raise our voice and make sure that we're heard. And honestly, I feel like when I first initially said anything, I wasn't expecting much to happen, but like anything that happens in Kingmakers, you know, when we open our mouths, we are supported.
We're heard.
And, you know, that's how we got here today to even have this show. But, you know, the most important thing to me is just always shedding light on work that is being done, but maybe doesn't get the spotlight. And I don't know, I feel like we've all been in that boat, whether we're a part of the LGBTQ community or not. But I think as a Black organization and knowing that what's the discourse between the Black LGBTQ community and then the Black community, you know, and trying to really bridge a gap, because it would be easy for someone who is maybe trans or, you know, non-binary and look at Kingmakers and say, oh, I can't be a part of that. Or they don't want someone like me there. You know, and honestly, if it wasn't for Kava, who I've known for the past almost 10 years and is also our director on the street team, I don't know if I would have like initially been like, oh yeah, I'm trying to join KU. Because that's not really how I got a part of it. But came to Kava and I was like, I really want to throw an event, you know, that is for youth, that shows youth voice, that shows youth music, you know, that's for us, by us. And she brought me to KU, and KU was like, let's do this, let's support this. And it's always been that way with, you know, KU, which is family. But yeah, I just think it's amazing that like, I have the privilege to be able to say, I want to shed light on something and then actually be able to put some type of, you know, production together to do that. But also just, you know, being a part of an organization that supports us the way that they do is also incredible. So I think it just came from knowing that we would be heard, and also knowing that it was something that needed to be done.
Yeah.
Because,
and I think I agree with you. It's like we've had this conversation so many times about just like making sure we're heard in those spaces and like our voices are heard. And like sometimes it's actually really easy for our voices to be heard.
Yeah.
And other times it's kind of harder because it's like, you know, you're still navigating like just how we present, how we show up. We still have to navigate that. And like, so I appreciate that. And I appreciate you for real, because like I was definitely, when I came into KU and I saw everything that was going on in Breaking Bread, like I knew most of the men in the room, and you were the one person that I didn't know yet. I knew who you were, but I didn't know you. Yeah, like I knew who you were, but I didn't know you. And so when I saw you on the meeting, I remember like my first meeting being like, okay, like they look familiar, like these people all look like cool. And then I was like, by the end of that first meeting, I was like, okay, I'm a rock with B. I was like, I don't know. And it's like, Khalil, I've grown up with, you know, Jordan, like a lot, like these people that I've like literally done my childhood with. So it's like, I already know I rock with them. I don't have to be awkward in a meeting because I've known them, you know? But then I met B and I was like, no, we gonna be tight. Cause like, you know, the vibe. And it just was like, we have the same kind of presence as far as like we wanted to do something specific that like really shined a light on kind of the people in our community. Like I remember when we first started talking about this, we both were like, I want to interview my grandma. Didn't know how we were going to get them in studio. Didn't know how it was on IG Live. Like, my grandma don't have an IG. Like, how we, but we were like really intentional about kind of like bridging those intergenerational gaps, bridging those, like all the gaps, all of the things that make us Black and that like create this community. So I really would just like to thank you, you know what I mean, for really being on my team with this, because that was like just wonderful. Okay, I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I think we have to wrap it up. Maybe two more, because you know what I'm saying? Who's going to stop us? How do you feel like you have to navigate your Blackness on the daily?
I would say, I mean, to be honest, yes, this is 2021, but people don't really understand the concept of gender as a construct, as a larger whole. Like, I feel like people our age understand it. I don't need to explain, you know, most of the time anybody 30 or younger, they'll get it. 30 and above is where the discrepancy is.
Right.
No offense, but it's just, like, I love my grandma, but I told her I was non-binary, and she was like, what do you mean they?
Right.
Like, I told her that my partner was non-binary, and she was like, are you dating multiple people?
Right, yeah, because, they get so confused with the pronouns.
And I mean, I've explained it to her, I don't know how many times.
Right.
But I think there's just a discrepancy. And so it kind of, as a Black non-binary person, it's like, I don't necessarily need to go into every space and tell everyone that I'm non-binary. Yeah. Most of the time, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
You know, the only reason I'm doing that today is because we're focusing on that.
Right,
you know?
right.
But 9 times out of 10, people are going to refer to me as she simply because that's what they see.
Yeah.
And I don't really have a problem with that. You know, I'm not going to take it to heart. I get misgendered all the time. But, like, at the same time, it's definitely something to navigate. Yeah. Because it's like, okay, everybody in the world sees you as this thing and wants to label you as this, but you're actually not that. And do I want to get in a fight with everybody that sees me as a female? No. But it's also like, when is it gonna,
when will you see me for
right? Or like, I guess, when are we gonna start educating people, and it not being the people that are identifying as that the ones doing the educating? It's the same with being Black and having to explain to a white person why you can't touch their hair. You understand? Like, why do I have to explain to anyone that I'm non-binary? I don't.
And I like how you connected that, because I think that that's like one problem that a lot of people, like Black people who are homophobic, transphobic, you know what I mean, who don't have that. It's like, it's really a replica of the same experience, like
of othering,
you know what I mean? Of just like complete just othering and distancing and not respecting. And it's like, on some basic level, you should understand that. That's what I always feel. You know what I mean? Like, on some basic level, you should understand oppression. You know what I mean? Because that's what we deal with. So I be always like, how come we have homophobia so like rampant? Because it's like, it's just another way to oppress people. Like, how come we have transphobia so rampant? Because it's just another way to oppress people. And we should know better because of how much we've been through as a community. So, yeah. Right. Completely. So what support do you think that you needed as a child, and then what support do you think that Black children could take today?
I mean, I got a lot of support. I just want to
Period.
say I got a lot of support as a
I love
youth.
that.
I dealt with a lot of things between my parents and my grandparents and drama within the family, but it was always, you know, no matter what, God got me. That's what I'm gonna say. Whether I was at school, church, home, whatever, there was always someone in my corner who was fighting for me actively, you know, trying to make sure that I was heard, trying to make sure that my needs were communicated. And so as much as a youth, I wasn't able to see that. I was very resentful, very angry, like, I hate the world type stuff. But, you know, growing up and looking back at it, I just want to, you know, say thank you to anybody who's watching this and who's helped me. Because it was teachers, it was friends, it was folks who didn't even really know me, but knew of me or knew my grandmother or knew my father.
It was a village.
And were then, you know, stepping up for me in ways that I never would have imagined. So I think it's just, I mean, if I'm going to say anything to kids, you never know who's watching you.
Yeah.
You never know who, and I don't mean that in a creepy way, but just like, you never know.
Whoa.
You never know who is paying attention. That's what I'll say. And I feel like a lot of folks are paying attention to me because of my talent and because of my drive and passion just to do what I love.
Right.
And people were like, oh my gosh, I want to support that. I want to see that person shine. I want to make sure that they make it to college, or I want to make sure that they make it to their audition, whatever the case may be. And if it wasn't for those people, I don't think I would be here today. But ultimately, I would say, just like you said, I mean, my grandmother is A1, number one. She actually just gave me a call before this. And, you know, she is, I would say, the root of all that I am. The quote, I am because you are, directly aligns with my grandmother and I. In terms of who she has raised me to be, the wisdom that she's, you know, instilled in me from day one, the faith, not only in myself and in who we are, but also just what God is and how he can work in your life. And also it being 2021, you know, I'm able to take that and form it into what I need, you know, because being non-binary, God is referred to as a male. I don't see God as a male anymore.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I see God as an entity, but I still see them as someone or something or some being that is working with me. You know what I'm saying? Protecting me, guiding me. And if I was going to say one thing to youth, I would just say, keep your head up. You know, there's times where it may feel like the world is falling apart. Everybody has their own stuff on their plate. But at the end of the day, you got to remember who and whose you are. That's what my grandma says. And that's what I say now. Okay? That's what I say. Remember who and whose you are always. Because as long as you remember that, you can't falter on, you know, where you stand and who you stand for.
Period. Y'all got that game. Write it down. Take notes. Remember who's and who you are. Period. I love that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Please let the people know how to connect with you, how to get in contact with you.
You can follow me at the B_Deveaux. It will be linked somewhere in this video because I don't know the correct spelling. But at the B_Deveaux on Instagram, as well as if you look up my name on YouTube, Facebook, you will find videos. I mean, look me up on Spotify. You'll find something. If you want to hear me sing, look me up on Spotify. I got a few projects out there.
You want to hear them sing.
Give Me a Reason is also out there. Yeah, I don't know. I'll be coming out with some new projects soon, so keep a lookout for that. If you want to, you know when that'll be happening, follow my IG.
Yes. Thank you, B_Deveaux.
Absolutely.
Thank you all for joining us today. This has been Kingmakers of Oakland's Crossroads, the intersections of Blackness. Once again, I am your host, Ikera, and I want to thank B for joining us. That was just beautiful, magnificent. Like I said, dynamic individual. You know what I mean? For those of you who are just listening for the first time, Kingmakers of Oakland is an organization dedicated to improving the educational and life outcomes for Black youth. We have cool merchandise, original music, documentary films, music videos, curriculum, and a whole host of other content and resources available that promote our movement and change the narrative for Black boys. Check out our 11th song, album, Kings in the Making, featuring B. Deveaux, and our 4-song EP, Revolution Remix, featuring B. Deveaux. Available on all digital music platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, iTunes, and then also Be Tuned for more music, featuring B. Deveaux. Follow us on social media and look out for information about our upcoming events.
Including on December 3rd, we're going to be having a live Bandcamp show. It will be streamed live on all of our social media platforms. So as long as you go ahead and follow, we will be sure to get you that link. Make sure you tap in because I'll be there.
B. Deveaux will be on stage featuring B. Deveaux, okay? Follow us on social media and look out for the information at our upcoming events at Kingmakers of Oakland on Instagram and Facebook, and then at Kingmakers of O. I think it's just O. There's no of O. My bad, y'all. On Twitter. Check us out. Our website, kingmakersofoakland.com. All that. Check us out. Thanks for being here. Much love. Much appreciation.
Peace.